Open up this meeting of Stephenville's Planning and Zoning Commission. The first item on the agenda is to consider approval of minutes. Commissioners, I noticed an error earlier on these where it was listing Bill Muncie as having voted on all these votes. And so the agenda, the minutes from last month have been redone. It was just a clerical error. So Muncie was pulled off. That was the only problem I saw with them.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as written with those changes. Bill Muncie, it's off here.
Yeah, they reran it. I called them.
Okay. I make a
earlier.
motion, we
Yeah.
accept the minutes as they're written.
Todd, did you have?
Yeah, well, we gotta get a second.
I'll get a second. Do we have a second? All right, Justin seconds. Todd?
I move to make corrections on the minutes from the Stephenville Council Wednesday, April 15th meeting. For clarification purposes, under case third page, fourth page on our current handout, RP 20001, every listing of Todd McCurry, it's either Cliff or me. I'm saying it's me. So it needs to reflect that it's Todd McAvoy, not both of us combined.
Right.
So I guess we can do that in a motion to accept them with changes noting where it says, anywhere it says Todd McCurry, we address that as Todd McAvoy, because those were all my motions, but, so it would be under, I don't even know how to phrase that. Any reference to Todd McCurry needs to say Todd McAvoy. How about that?
I think that works.
Does that make sense? Okay.
I think that works. And
Because it's listed out here like 3 or 4 times, I just want to make sure, yeah.
All
We
right.
can clip that if you want
Yeah.
to take them all.
I didn't catch that.
All right, we have a motion and a second and an amendment to the motion, correct? With this additional change. So let us first vote on the amendment. Do all those in favor of the amendment put forth by Todd say aye? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, and the motion to approve, all those in favor say aye? Aye. Those opposed? And this passes. Okay. So tonight, we have, the first item on our agenda is case number PD 2020-003. Applicant Steve Emmons is requesting a rezone of property located at 2241 Tarleton, parcel R30330, Lot 2, Block 3 of the Cayley subdivision to the City of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from single-family resident district R1 to planned development PD. And we are not actually making a decision on this tonight. We are only hearing it because this is the preliminary plan development. We are just hearing from the public, getting information, and then passing it on to City Council. And Steve is going to talk about how all of the items on the agenda today interrelate and are essentially coming together as one item.
Yes, ma'am.
Steve.
Thank you, Lady Chair. Applicant Mr. Steve Emmons is here tonight. He's going to provide a concept plan for these 3 parcels. All 3 parcels are related to the same project, which he has the concept plan for. So it will include case number 003, 004, and 005. First met Mr. Emmons on April 24th. And he had requested to rezone the properties as we previously listed to a planned development. 2 of those properties are currently zoned R1, or I'm sorry, 003, property 003 and 004 have current and future zoning of R1. He is requesting those be changed to a PD if the development plan is so approved later, at a later time. Case 005 has current zoning of R3 and future zoning of R2. Again, this property is connected to the conceptual plan that he will share with you tonight. The commission has requested to provide guidance to Mr. Emmons on his conceptual plan, and at a later time, he will bring back a development plan for final consideration. At that time, the commission will make a recommendation to council and then the council will make the final decision on the development plan. Again, Mr. Emmons is here. We'd like to welcome him. He's come a long ways and has some information to share with you.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Steve Emmons. I'm with Spectra Student Living. We're based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. My address is 2001 West Mishawaka Avenue, Mishawaka, Indiana, 46544. I'm the Vice President of Construction Development for Spectra Student Living. We're a younger company. We started in 2017, the winter of 2017, but our team has many years of multi-family and student housing experience. We have projects in Indiana, Michigan, Georgia, and Florida currently. Future projects planned or in the works in Florida, North Carolina, Illinois, and hopefully Stephenville, Texas. Can we see slide number 1, please? I'm sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. And then slide number 2 would be great. Our goals are we strive to be a positive member of the community and to be good neighbors. To develop and build a high-quality community yet affordable housing options to the city of Stephenville. Target young professional, graduate students, married students, not just the traditional undergraduate students. And can I get slide number 3, please? The area is just off of Tarleton, West Tarleton. By the, I think there's a Big Lots, and then there's 2 apartment communities to the south and some single-family homes. And I think the street is, what's the street that runs to the north?
Tarleton and Phelps.
Phelps. So that general vicinity. And if I could see site number 4. So this is our conceptual site plan, and what I did with our team, our development and design team, was try to be very respectful of the surrounding neighborhoods. I've got a couple different renditions of this, one in color and one in black and white, but what we tried to do was pull everything towards the center, especially in the back portion of the project, and we kept those as 2-story buildings instead of 3. When I looked at the other requests that was made, one of the big complaints is that the buildings were up along the property lines and people could see into the backyards, and I would agree with them. I wouldn't like that if I lived in the neighborhood, that if someone could look out there, 3-story or 2-story balcony and look into the backyard. So there's about a 20-foot green space separation between the parking lot and the property to the north in the back portion. And then 18 feet of parking space, 25 feet of travel lane, another 18 feet of parking space, and then there's about another 15 to 18 feet between the curb and the building of separation. So we really did try to pull as far away from the neighbors as we could. And again, all the back buildings are either 1 or 2-story buildings. And then if you go towards the front of the property, we do have some 3-story buildings up front. But again, there's a 60-foot green space easement along the top. Then you go through your parking again, and then your sidewalk and more setback. My goal is that the stormwater retention, which we're working through right now, can be reduced. But I do know there's a great deal of water that comes from the properties from the north through our parcel. So we're trying to adequately design it so that not only are we handling our stormwater, which is required by code, but also as the other water that comes through it can be properly discharged to the other side. I'm sorry, catch up for a second. We are planning for 148 units over 8.77 acres. There'll be 9 residential buildings and 1 clubhouse and a maintenance facility building. The main entrance will be off of West Tarleton. Again, we emphasized open and green space throughout the project. positioning of the buildings so that not to affect the adjacent properties. Parking and green space were used to create space between the units, or excuse me, between the neighbors and the buildings. And the clubhouse we centered towards the center of the property to kind of create more of a neighborhood atmosphere and not just you drive in and your leasing office is right there. And within the clubhouse building, there'll be a leasing office, a business center, study and meeting rooms, a gathering area, and a pool and patio area for the residents. The landscaping and screening and green space, currently developing and designing more of a comprehensive landscape plan, but I really would rather not go through and just fence around the whole property. I've been on the property quite a few times, and a lot of the property owners now have fencing and some of it privacy fencing. I would rather work with the neighbors, and we haven't been able to have a neighborhood meeting yet with them, which I usually like to do because of what we're going through throughout the country. So I'd rather come through and in a combination of berming, heavy landscaping, and fencing, create nice separation and screening between the development and the residents. And I would almost work like on an individual basis going down the row so that if someone already had a property fence up, we're not just going back to back with another fence. That maybe that's a section that we do more landscaping in. And then if someone said, hey, I'd really like my backyard to be fenced off, we'd work with them, to kind of make it a random uniformed screening process. We purchased the additional 2.2 acres up front because we really felt that it was important to this project to spread it out a little bit and create green space and have adequate amount of parking. We didn't want to just cram a whole bunch of buildings onto the parcel. So we tried to get as much as we could so we could space out as much as we could. Within the R3 zoning district, and I know that only a portion of this is zoned R3, but it would allow for, on the 8.77 acres, if it was R3, 210 units. We've only planned for 148. The unit mix would be as followed: 20 studio units, 31 bedroom units, 52 bedroom units, and 48 4-bedroom units. The studios, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units make up 2/3 of the unit count, and we did that purposely. We designed to cater to the upper class, graduate, faculty, and staff members and professionals within the community. This is not strictly a student housing development. We have found that if we strictly build a student housing development, it tends to be what everybody doesn't want, and becomes to be more of loud noises and parties. And if we do more of a mixed unit development and tailor to more than just the undergrad student, we get a better clientele and the project is better for the community we built in. So we started this concept around Notre Dame. We did a smaller community at Notre Dame called Orem. This is years ago, and it was successful. And so as we went into other communities, Big Rapids, Michigan is our most recent one. The Plan Commission there and the City Council there said, hey, it's great, everybody comes, always builds houses, or student housing. We also need some regular housing as well. And if you look at most of the student housing communities, they're strictly 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 bedrooms per unit. We, again, tried to tailor this with 2/3 of the units being of a lower density of the studios, 1s and 2s, to attract a different type of market than just the traditional undergraduate student. The 4-bedroom units that we do have, we positioned in the front of the project on the land that's currently zoned R3. We did that to be respectful of the neighbors to the north and also to create the most separation as we could. And with their R3 already being in the area just adjacent to the south, we felt that was the best place to do the higher density type housing. Can I have building slide 5 and then slide 6? So here, this is our conceptual elevation of the 2-story building. We are changing it as we go. But one of the things that we decided to do was to do a flat roof instead of a gabled roof. The reason that we decided to do that is we felt that it was more conducive to the neighborhood and the sightline of the neighborhood, not to have really tall structures. The zoning ordinance under R3 allows for a building of 35 feet. Each of these buildings will be well under 35 feet. The closest will be obviously the 3-story building, but it will be under by a foot or two. That also allows us to put the ACD and condenser units on the roof instead of around the building, so it's a cleaner, more appealing look to the neighborhood. We use quality materials, for example, Anderson windows, James Hardie siding, and we use Carrier HVAC equipment. So with the project we're building and are proposing to build is quality materials and kept up for years to come, where it's not going to deteriorate quickly and then become an eyesore for the neighborhood. Next slide 7, please. Whoop, 7, that's.
That's 7. That's 6.
Okay, can you do, yeah, it might be more towards the end. You try slide 11, I'm sorry.
That's 11.
12 then. There we go. Okay, and that's a little bit, somehow got skewed. Actually, it's the site plan that you have that was distributed. I just want to talk through parking a little bit. So if this, I have to refer back to R3 because that is technically the zoning that we're looking at, but just doing it as a planned development. Underneath the R3 zoning, it's required to have 2 parking spaces per unit, or 298 spaces. We have planned for close to 380 spaces. The reason being is that we wanted to be mindful of the neighborhood, and we didn't want parking to overflow onto the streets, neighborhood streets. And so we with having a lower unit count per acre, it allowed us to increase the parking to give us adequate parking, but still have plenty of green space. Right now, the green space is 33% of the project. Over 33% of the project is open green space, with about 66.7 being impervious type materials, either parking lot or building. All the parking spaces meet the city standards of 9.5 by 18, and all the fire lanes are 25 foot in width with the required turning radius. We build our communities for the long term and for stability within the communities that we are in. We build our projects that are aesthetically pleasing now and for years to come. Spectra will be an active member in the Stephenville community if this is approved. We've done projects in other areas that I'd kind of like to show you the quality that we do. That would be slide 7. This is our project in Big Rapids, Michigan at Fair Estate that was completed last summer. Slide number 8 is one that's that's phase 1. We're currently doing phase 2, where you can see the construction to the short end of the building is Vivio at IUPUI in Indianapolis. That's more of an urban type project. It's 6 stories. Obviously, we're not building 6 stories here, but kind of gives you the idea of the quality that we strive for. Octave Row, which is slide number 9. That is a project that we're currently under construction in Carrollton, Georgia at the University of West Georgia. And then slide number 10 is at Warner University. We actually have 2 projects at Warner University. Those are on campus, more of your traditional residence hall type buildings. But again, I think it's a very attractive building and project. We self-manage and operate our properties. We do not use a third management company. So when you're dealing with now Spectra at the beginning, you'll deal with Spectra for years to come. It's going to be us that are on site managing it daily. We have, on a project this size, we'll probably have a full-time property manager, a full-time leasing manager, along with maintenance staff, and then we usually work with some interns from the university to help on that type of marketing. So, and we usually hire local, and that's important to us to involve the community and not just bringing people from the outside. We also will source our construction from a local area firm. We plan on investing about, well, just over $20 million into the project, and we'll generate an additional $150,000 a year in property taxes. Have slide 11, please. So when I first started talking to the city, the question was asked, why Stevensville? Why Stevensville? And our market research shows a present and future need for additional quality multifamily housing within the community. Tarleton State is growing, but was not the only reason for us to choose this community. The more time we spend in the community and the more people we meet, Stevensville has become a place Spectra will want to be a part of for the future. In conclusion, Spectra Student Living is exciting for the opportunity to become a part of the Stevensville community. Spectra Student Living invested additional time and effort and resources into the design of the layout of the proposed project to be a positive impact to the neighborhood and the community. I thank you for your time this evening and happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Owens?
I do. All the developments you've done in the past,
Mm-hmm.
do y'all own all the developments that you've
Yes.
developed? Y'all haven't sold anything?
Haven't sold in
Okay. How long have y'all been in business?
since 2017. So we're a younger company.
Okay.
No other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Emmons.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we are now.
Can we would like to have before your guys' next meeting, a neighborhood meeting with the community if possible. So-
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up a public hearing. Just note, we have received 9 letters in opposition to this project. I'm not going to read the letters because there's 9 and they're long, but I'll state who they're from. The first one is Miss Ruth Brannon. We've got a letter from Marguerite Stewart, James Gresham, Joshua Wallace and Yi Chin Wu, Carolyn Trussell, Patty Clemmer, Amanda Clevenger, Steve Gunn, Anita Stodgehill. And we all have received copies of these and reviewed them. And they're part of the public record.
Madam Chair, if I may, we received one more letter at 5:29, so right before the
Make that 10
meeting
letters.
began. So that would be 10 letters, and this was from a Charlene Atkinson.
Charlene Atkinson. Okay, so 10 letters in opposition. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. We'll begin with anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this planned development. Is there anybody on the line who wishes to speak in favor? And if you do, I ask you to state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes to speak your piece.
Madam Chair, we may want to ask if they can speak on all 3.
Yes. Because we have 3 items on the agenda and they're all related, if we could just go ahead and anybody who wishes to speak for this planned development on any of these items is free to speak now. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no. And we are going to see if anybody wishes to speak in opposition to any of these 3 items. And if, I know that everybody is on the line, I think everybody's available, so if we could just take it one at a time. So one person state your name, address, and then you can begin your 3 minutes.
Charlene Atkinson.
Colleen Atkinson, yes, ma'am. Your address, please?
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am. Your address?
580 Charlotte.
Okay, go ahead.
I wish I could have heard everything.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am,
said.
before you begin, anybody who is not speaking, if you could mute yourself because we're getting a lot of feedback. Okay.
Can I speak now?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
I wish I could have heard everything that he said, but I could not hear over the phone. But I really don't know why we're having this meeting, because he's already come out there and put out his little stakes and marked the trees he's going to cut down and dug holes and all of that. When I first moved here, this was called the cowboy capital of the world. Now it's the apartment capital of the world. The tallest building in town is an apartment. I just don't think we need that many apartments. I have students that have lived next door to me for 10 years. I put up with beer cans, trash, vulgar language, calling the police. And I can only imagine what it would be like to have that many students against my backyard fence. It would destroy the peace and quiet between Tarleton and Fry Street. And that doesn't even count the drainage, which that lot, as he said, fills up like a lake. And getting on to Tarleton Street takes forever right now. So I just do not see that building an apartment back there would be a positive impact at all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me just speak for those of you who are listening or on the line. If you had difficulty hearing the presentation, this is also going to be available on YouTube, and it's on Facebook Live right now. So I would encourage everyone to go back and hear that presentation, because it is significantly different than what we heard last time this came before us. So please go back and watch that on YouTube. Okay. Next person, may you state your name and address, please.
I've got names for most of them, so let's maybe go one at a time.
One at a
So
time.
let's do Charlie Fan.
Charlie Fan. Charlie Fan. And can you state your address, please?
A3 Mimosa.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I supposed to have a Zoom meeting with all of you today at the city, but we got some work to do right now, so my daughter will take over here, okay?
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Shaw, how are you? That's my neighbor right there. I have a workout for you, okay?
I think they're done.
Okay. Thank you.
We have Amanda Clevenger.
Amanda Clevenger. Is Amanda Clevenger there?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. Can you state your address for us and go ahead?
550 Charlotte. My backyard faces the property. We're concerned about noise, trash, and then I think the traffic is a good point. It is really difficult to get out on both ends of our street, and I think that'll just get worse. So I'm opposed.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Next, Anita Stodgill.
Anita Stodgill. Anita Stodgill, you there?
She muted herself again.
You're muted right now.
Okay, Carolyn Trussell.
Carolyn Trussell, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Can you please state your address and go ahead and let us know how you're feeling?
Okay. I am actually representing my father, Harvey Chapman, that lives at 590 North Charlotte. The reason we're opposed to this is, like the others have said, is just the fact that the extra noise, extra traffic, those sort of things like that. When this property was originally purchased, it was such a quiet neighborhood. And being as close as we are to the university here, it gets noisy at times, but it's bearable. But this, I'm afraid, will just impact this area so much more that I just don't believe that it's necessary at all.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Holly Stone.
Holly Stone? Holly Stone, are you there?
Jack Dahl.
Jack Dahl? Is Jack Dahl there?
Yes, this is actually Shelley Dahl,
Shelley Dahl, thank you. Could you please state your address?
2381
Thank you.
West Mimosa Lane.
Thank you, go ahead.
Okay, so I am very much opposed to this. As one of the callers stated before, you know, we have a very large number of townhomes and apartments. And I think that the occupancy rate may come as a shock to the person that's going to develop this. I've talked to quite a few of the people that are involved in those, and the occupancy rate is not what it used to be. I think also that there's a very real chance that Tarleton is not going to grow at the same rate that it has been growing because of the coronavirus and what's happening with colleges and universities. The enrollment may even drop. And if that's the case, I feel like that there's a big chance that the occupancy will not at all be what this company is hoping that it will be. And so my concern is what happens when they have this huge number of townhomes, up to 4-bedroom units. What happens when Tarleton's enrollment does not meet their expectations? And then you're going to have a lot of empty units. And then what's going to happen? Are we going to be the first one that you guys bail on? I do hear you saying that, you know, you still owned all that you own, but we're in a very different world than we were a few months ago. Also, I concur that the amount of traffic on that street is bad. The water, I'm very concerned about how you're actually going to handle the water. I do think you will have problems with water on that lot, that area, but I feel like what you're going to do is go in there and basically divert it into these other people's backyards. I am also concerned about trash and noise. I actually own rental homes, have properties in the area, and it's an ongoing problem. I also think that you are not really understanding our community if you think that graduate students or families or older students are going to choose to live there, because what we've found is those students want a place with a yard where they can possibly have a dog. I don't see that those type of students are going to want to live in a townhome crammed in with that many other students. And then my last point is, also I noticed that it looked like you're trying to open up Phelps as an entryway to the complex, and I think that that's going to have a very detrimental effect on Mockingbird and on Dale Street. Dale Street is very hard to navigate in the mornings and afternoons, particularly the mornings because of school traffic with the independent school district. And if you open up Phelps Street in and out of that complex, it's going to impact people that probably aren't even aware of this and aren't on this call.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. That's your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. I know that Mr. Emmons wants to address some of these. Let's go ahead and finish up hearing everyone, and then you can address it all at once. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition? A lot? Okay.
Let's swing back to Anita Stodgehill. She's ready to go now.
Anita Stodgehill. Anita, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Okay, your address, please?
895 Mimosa Court.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I don't understand. There may be just something I don't understand, but I don't understand. Like, if say that this passes and he changes the zoning and everything, what's to stop him from changing his mind about what he builds back there? Is he bound to build only what he's saying right now?
Yes, he is. No, he's legally bound. Yeah, he can't just change that.
And what's going to happen, there's going to be a lot of foot traffic. Everyone walks to school just about. I mean, there's so much foot traffic on Fry Street day and night, going from the apartment complexes down to the school and then other kids going from one apartment complex to the other. It's just a lot of people walking at night and in the daytime. What's going to happen to all these people when they start walking to school? Are they all going to just go up one street? I mean, how are they going to navigate without getting, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people, you know, just walking. And also, you know, I lived behind, I lived with an apartment complex behind me before, and there was a lot of trash that was being thrown in our yard by irresponsible people, and there's always irresponsible people. I know there's a lot of trash on that lot that blows back and forth, but it doesn't go into the backyards. And when I lived by an apartment complex, there was a lot of trash in my yard. People threw beer bottles, you know, because they were partying and stuff. And then there's going to be a lot of noisy, you know, a whole lot more noise, I feel like, you know. And, you know, really, I had said in my letter that I wrote, you know, that I was a realtor, and I felt like that building apartment complexes back there would change the privacy, and it was also going to bring the price of the houses down. But he did address that it was going to be below the sight line. And that's fine, you know, if it's going to be down low enough where people are not looking into those backyards, then that might be all right. But if they're high enough where they can see into the backyards, I just feel like it's an invasion of privacy, and it's going to run the price down on the houses there. If it runs the price down on those houses, it runs the price down on all the houses in the area. You know, because being a realtor, I know that because I run comps daily, you know. So that's pretty much all I had to say, I think.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, next we got Sally Lloyd.
Sally Lloyd?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your address.
Sally Lloyd. I live at 2380 West Mimosa and also own property at 525 Charlotte.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I appreciate Mr. Emmons being so prepared tonight. It was a very nice presentation, and I think he addressed a lot of the things that were brought up as concerns with the last proposal that came through. Having said that, though, on the staff report on all three of these lots, it says there that the recommendation is comprehensive plan for future land use designates this property to be R1 single family. Therefore, request does not comply with comprehensive plan. So this is, and I realize that's the whole purpose of having these hearings, is so that someone can propose to change what's there, but that is not the planned use for this space. We've talked before about how there's very few areas for single family homes to be built in the community anymore within the city limits. All those developments have been pushed out into the county. And I think this area would be a great use for that. It's a great neighborhood to live in. Concerns about traffic, I think, are very real. I know both ends of Charlotte Street are pretty hazardous to get out into, partially because of landscaping. And Tarleton Street just isn't very big. And we've already got the other new complex that just opened across the street from this property. And now if there's 128 units, based on, you know, if the majority of them are full of people who are of driving age, we're talking about another 200 to 250 people trying to get out onto that street. And I think that's going to be very hazardous. I see on the plans that it shows Phelps Street on both sides. Those streets are not through streets. And I don't remember if it was at planning and zoning last time or at city council, but they said there was no plan to open those streets up to be through streets. So I don't think that would relieve anything. And like Ms. Dahl said, I think it would also be a hindrance to the traffic on Dale Street and Charlotte as well. Charlotte has a lot of cars up and down it, and it's a pretty tough street to navigate anyway. Let's see. I think I do appreciate the ability in this proposal to have discussions with the potential developers on what the community is less opposed to. I don't say that they are agreeable to, because I think all of us are opposed to it, but I still think the best use of this area would be perhaps garden homes, which would be highly attractive to people moving into the area as new professionals, faculty members at Tarleton. And then I also, on my last thing, will agree that our Tarleton growth is, well, university growth across the country is not what it has been. And with coronavirus and so many things being online, higher ed is a changing world. And I think that we may be doing the city a disservice if we build yet another large apartment complex and then have it sit vacant because the students just aren't physically here. They're taking classes online. Thank you.
Thank you. James Gresham, please state your address.
My name is James Gresham. I live at 409 North Charlotte.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, thank you for taking the time. I'd like to echo several of the comments that Ms. Lloyd made. First and foremost, the comprehensive plan for all three of these pieces of property are zoned differently. They're zoned for planned development. Two of them are zoned for R1. If you look at the overall layout of this piece of property, it's very conducive to an R1 layout, and I believe that the original intent for the area was to develop as multifamily home. And as Ms. Lloyd also said, there's some concerns about how this property is going to affect infrastructure as far as the roadways, as far as the water and the storm sewage, and as far as the walking paths. We have no sidewalks that connect Tarleton to this section of town, and we see a number of pedestrian traffic already on Tarleton Street coming from all the apartment complexes walking on the roadway as well. So there's nothing in this plan that would channel pedestrian traffic away from it. Thirdly, you have to look at how this property abuts is on basically 2/3 of its size. It is abutting single family homes. Yes, this is a traditional area of town, but by injecting a planned development community of this high density capacity in this section, you are basically surrounding it by single family homes, which again goes back to the comprehensive use plan and why these two sections of property were zoned R1, simply because to prevent that from happening. So ultimately, we feel like this is not in the best interest of the neighborhood. It's not in the best interest of the city, and it's not in the best interest of the future use of this land, and that's why we are opposed to it.
Thank you, sir. Marguerite Stewart.
Hi,
Hi, please state your name, your address, and then go ahead.
I'm at 878 Mimosa Court.
Thank you.
I have a lot of the same concerns that everyone else had with. I had heard that there was going to be around 300 parking spots for this apartment complex, and so I was really concerned about the traffic also. It's very difficult whether you're going to the school, the ISD, or Tarleton, or you're just trying to get to work in the morning, and it's just already ridiculous. I can't imagine adding even half of that to the mix, plus potential for another 100 or so pedestrians that you have to look out for that have no protection as far as walking lanes or anything. Also, just the invasion of privacy for the people that are surrounding this unit. It's not an immediate concern for me. My backyard doesn't meet the same area that the people on Charlotte and Mockingbird, but I know this is an issue for them. The two units on the end of Mimosa Court would have that problem, plus the possibility of where all these dumpsters going to go. How close is the parking lot going to be to these people's backyards? Are you going to have, there's going to be potentially lots of really young people that are going to be away from home for the first time in this complex, inexperienced drivers. Are you going to have them, it's a possibility of crashing through a fence, or, it may be unlikely, but it could happen. Dealing with the smells and from the dumpsters and the noise, just from the people that are going to be living there. And the pests that dumpsters would bring in to the area, bugs and rats and stray cats and all that kind of stuff. Also, the property values is another concern for me, especially. I know that you're only obligated to notify people within a 200-foot range, but it really affects everyone from this side of Harbin through, and this side of Washington all the way back to the Northwest Loop. When you are looking for if you wanted to sell your home, the sales of the properties that are devalued would affect your estimate, your market value, in other words. And just, the reason that we, well, I can't speak for everyone, but the reason I bought this place, knowing that land was there, I knew that it was zoned for residential, so I felt reasonably secure that there wouldn't be an apartment or some kind of commercial building or commercial operation going in there.
Okay, ma'am, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up. If you could just give a final.
That was my last point.
Okay. I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Joshua Wallace and Ija.
Two people, Joshua Wallace and Ija.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for letting us speak. So we live at 835 Mimosa Court. Our property is is adjacent to this, just to the north. Couple of things to say. Well, we bought this property in 2016, and we knew that there was a large vacant lot behind when we bought it. And we checked the zoning of that and saw that it was R1, and that made us more confident that we could purchase there. Had this land been zoned R3 or PD or something that would allow for apartments, we probably would have made different choices about where we were going to buy our home. And so we feel a little bit kind of disappointed if that were to kind of change out from under us. Several of the things that do, one thing that I'll bring up is I know that, especially before our current situation with COVID, I mean, Tarleton was growing, and there's, of course, the need for student housing, and that may be changing. We'll see what the future holds. But Tarleton growing does not only bring new students to town, it also brings new faculty and staff to town, and my wife and I are examples of that. And we were very happy to purchase this home here because of its proximity to Tarleton, yet it still provided a quiet family neighborhood environment that we wanted to live in. And I think that there are other people who are in our boat that also appreciate having R1 style homes available that they could purchase that would be accessible and nearby Tarleton. Part of our concerns are just kind of echoing a lot of the things other people said, but we're concerned about our property value. I know in the previous time we went through this, people said that it doesn't affect property values, but I know personally, if I were going to a new town to buy a home, one home has an apartment behind it and one home doesn't, I'm much more likely to buy the one that doesn't. And I'm concerned that if we ever put our home up on the market, that we will have a challenge finding a buyer for our home. We're also concerned about the increased noise in the area. We were also concerned about the decreased privacy, though I do appreciate the speaker addressing that, and it does seem that that they are taking that in mind in their designs, and I do appreciate that. A few things that we would like to request if this ultimately is approved. Our property, we are next door to 838. There's between us and 838, there is a concrete drainage ditch between our two areas, and we're really concerned about if there's an apartment back there, people easily using that as like a walking way going back and forth and providing easy access to our property. We would like to see some kind of barrier that would prevent people living in the apartment to be able to walk up that easily. We would also appreciate maybe the city placing a a dead end sign at the end of Mimosa Court. We already have a lot of people who drive down this road apparently thinking that it connects somewhere, and then they realize it doesn't and they turn around. And I'm afraid with an apartment there, a lot of people living there may think, hey, I can access my home. And we have a lot of children that play in the cul-de-sac here, and I'm concerned with increased traffic in the area that could be a danger to them. We would also like to request, behind our property line, there's a large group of trees. If possible, we would like those trees to remain and not be cut down. That's pretty much all that we wanted to say, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next. Ruth?
Yes, Ruth Braden,
And your address, please.
560 North Charlotte Avenue.
Thank you, go ahead.
Yes, I like the rest of everyone that's spoken. I have a lot of the same issues with this rezoning. We currently have a ditch next to our house that we are the proud owners of. And when it rains, it is like a river. And I'm concerned. I realize he said they're going to take care of drainage problems, but I don't know that they realize the total issue of how bad it is. The water backs up our driveway, even with the water running through the ditch at, river speed. That's a huge concern. And I'm also concerned about the traffic. When we bought our house 20 years ago, it was this nice, easygoing residential neighborhood, and it still is. But our street is the only street that doesn't have a stop sign from Fry Street to West Tarleton. So we are the cut through. Lydia has this 4-way stop, and then on the other end, that is just, Linda Lane, and that's kind of a squirrely little back and forth. So if anybody wants to cut through, they're cutting through on North Charlotte. And like I think it was Marguerite said, there's lots of parked cars. You have to really weasel your way down. And I fear for the people that do have children on our street, not to mention, us backing out of our driveway. Also, West Tarleton, after this last apartment complex was built, or it's still being built, the road is in terrible disrepair. I mean, terrible disrepair. And more, you put 200 more cars on that street and it's going to be even worse. Like I said, we bought our house 20 years ago. It's paid for. My husband's getting ready to retire. And the last thing I want to be looking out my backyard at is apartment buildings. I know it can't stay a field, but why, the subdivision, Amber Homes over here on Mimosa Court, that's beautiful. I don't understand why something like that can't be done. But I think it was Marguerite again said, or maybe it was the gentleman before me, they purchased their home and they checked the zoning and it was R1. So we weren't worried about having this problem in the future. We expected to have homes behind us. And I think that's about all. It sounded like they are going to address barriers between our backyards, like for parking lot, like the headlights coming through. Also the parking lot lighting, I'm worried about that shining, into our backyards. And also the trash.
Okay, ma'am. I'm sorry, you've hit your 3 minutes, but.
Okay, that's right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your input.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Next we have Stephen.
Stephen?
My name is Stephen Ferguson. I live 2415 Phelps Street. I would like to just reiterate the traffic is going to be very bad. We're looking at 200 cars. That's 200 cars twice a day at minimum. We're adding 400 vehicles to our streets. Also, the devaluation of the property. They claim they're going to bring $150,000 in tax revenue, but what's that going to do? How much tax revenue is the city going to lose due to devaluation of the property? And also, the flooding issue off of Roland Street, where all that runoff goes down, is already flooding houses. So what is that going to do to that? And I'm against all this rezoning. I'd like for it to stay R1. And I've said my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, Kathy Sherrard.
Kathy Sherrard?
Yes. Okay, yes. I live at 823 North Charlotte. I've lived here almost 30 years, and I love this neighborhood. But I can agree with many of these residents. The traffic on Charlotte is awful. Sometimes you have to pull behind cars for 2 blocks to let another car go through before you can go through. And these college kids in their huge trucks drive very, very fast down this road. And it's not just Tarleton kids on foot. There are kids that walk to the intermediate school and home. And you all need to take that into consideration. But the other thing is, I don't know why this push for more housing. You all have to understand this COVID-19 has really messed up the economy, and Harvard has gone completely online. And I've heard that half of Tarleton students are going online. It's just not going to be the population that we had. The other thing, he said he's going to put all the air conditioning units on the top so you all don't have to look at it. I don't know. I think that's really ugly. I wrote something else down. But another thing, he says he's going to pay $150 in property taxes. That's not going to happen if Tarleton students don't come back. And the other thing, he's only been around since 2017. We don't know his track record. And why would we want somebody from Indiana? They're not Texans. They don't understand us. And they probably just come to see Stephenville because they think we're stupid. So anyway, I hope that you leave this single family for the sake of all of us. I love my neighborhood, or I would have moved years ago. I raised my children here. I love this community. Please don't let him do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have someone by the name of just iPhone.
iPhone? iPhone, you out there?
That's me. I don't know why it says that.
Please state your
Sorry.
name and address.
Hi, my name is Paige Perry. My husband and I own a home located at 2480 West Phelps. First of all, I'd like to thank the Planning and Zoning Committee for this opportunity to allow us to speak out with our concerns about the rezoning of this to a planned development. So my husband and I are both from Stephenville. We grew up there. We still have family and friends there. We're still very in touch with the community, and we possibly will be living there again in the future. We strongly oppose rezoning of these lots for the same reasons we opposed in a letter that we submitted to the Planning and Zoning Committee on 2/14 when Ryan Gailey was requesting to have these lots rezoned for multifamily zoning. First of all, we believe such a development as what is being proposed would cause more traffic on the surrounding streets. So this would increase noise, obviously, and be a safety issue for families that have children in the area. Also, we're concerned about, like pollution in the form of trash, light pollution, that's inevitably going to happen from such a large development. And we're concerned about crime, like, car theft that will probably spill over into the neighborhoods that surround. And then, of course, we're concerned about the property value, which I do believe will go down because there's a lot of families that aren't going to want to own a home that's backs up to an apartment complex, which this essentially is. I mean, no matter what you call it. We understand that Tarleton is a part of Stephenville and its growth is very vital to the city, but Stephenville is also made up of a lot of families that have lived there for generations, such as ours. And we believe that the city of Stephenville needs to be conscientious of this and take this into account when making its decisions as far as planning goes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, next, Kate Barton.
Kate Barton?
Hi, can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Kate Barton. I live at 2451 West Mimosa Lane. And I don't necessarily have anything new to contribute other than I agree with pretty much everything that has been said. And currently, I am in opposition to the development of this complex. My main concern is the traffic. Like everybody has said, it is bad to begin with, and Charlotte is a cut through. I live on the north section of Mimosa, which happens to be a cut through from Fry to Harbin, so I know what that's like. And Tarleton Street is also a cut through from Dale to Harbin. And so not only do you have the traffic of the residents that live in that area, you also have people cutting through, trying to get back and forth either to Tarleton or to the intermediate school or to the junior high or to the high school. So my main concern is just the increase in traffic, followed by obviously the valuation of my home. And I feel for the residents that would be juxtaposed to this complex, because I don't think I would like it in my backyard. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to voice our concerns, and I thank Mr. Emmons for his presentation. It was very professional and did shed some new light on what they would like to build. So I appreciate seeing that and having the opportunity to take a look at that in advance. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Steve Gunn?
Well, I think my letter's gone to the commission already, but the only points I'd probably
I'm sorry,
like
sir,
to
could you
make-
just state your address real quick?
Oh, 125 Linda Lane.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I'm joining my property, that's the development and request. The only thing I would like to say, we were talking about, everybody else was talking about the property values, true with that, and talking about, in that staff report, I was seeing, we're talking about traffic, and what it states in there is safe and convenient movement of vehicular and pedestrian traffic. And I was just making a point that on that, there's 3 streets that intersects Tarleton. Tarleton runs from Dale Avenue to Harbin Drive. In those 3 blocks, in between those 2 streets, there's 8 residential driveways. There are 4 current apartment driveways, 3 driveways from a strip shopping center, and 9 drive-in lanes at Internet. And you're talking about pedestrian traffic, and it says safe and convenient movement of vehicular and pedestrian traffic. I don't think that's the case there. Another point I'd like to make, and it's a moot point to a lot of people, but you're talking about we're talking about sewer lines and water lines and what the city's going to have to prepare for, other than repairing those streets. You're talking about property that is going to be served with a 6-inch sewer line located on Linda Lane. Well, Linda Lane has had that sewer line. The city has been there several times pumping out that sewer line that's already been used by Steamboat West Apartment, Linda Lane Apartments, and whatever I have from Linda Lane to the north of me. I don't know. But a 6-inch sewer line that funds into that. That's one problem. Your water line, your sewer lines, and your streets are going to be a cost for the city. Other than that, I think I pretty much said what I had to say in that letter. I'm with everyone that's opposed to this and what they've had to say and about the traffic, the noise, the lighting, etc. So I'm definitely opposed to this development. So thank you, Commission.
Thank you, sir. Max Romney?
Hey, yes, ma'am. Thank you. We live on 2450 West Mimosa Lane, so just slightly north of this. Just to reiterate what everyone else said, our concern is definitely the traffic. You'll find, I think we're all pretty protective of our neighborhood because of it's a quiet place. Our kids ride their scooters on the roads, ride their bikes all over the roads. They can walk to school. We got, it's just a good location and it's a good neighborhood. So I don't think any of us are particularly against development, but I think we are all against high density apartments. So we would ask the city to keep that in mind, leave it as it is, as zoned as it is, but develop it in single family homes. When we moved here several years ago, I guess it's 7 years ago now, we had a very rough time trying to find an apartment for our small family. A home. And since we've lived here, And we've had apartments go up, quite a few apartments go up all over town, but I don't know if I've seen any new family homes being built. So I guess we would be wondering, like, what is our current occupancy rate? Like, do you need more capacity? Because it seems like we've got more apartments than we need. What we could use more would be single family homes. Like, it hasn't gotten any easier or any more available since we moved. So I think, yeah, other than that, I agree. I think people have covered our other concerns. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Next we have SKBHC.
SKBHC?
I'm not talking.
SKBHC?
Don't say anything. Don't make any sound of nothing.
I don't. Are you speaking into your microphone? We can't quite hear you.
They muted themselves. Holly Stone.
Holly Stone? Holly Stone.
Aaron Matthews.
Aaron Matthews? Aaron Matthews? Are you there? I can hear a little something.
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add?
Correct.
Okay. If you just want to state your address and just state that you're in opposition for the record, we can get you on.
I'm not for or against. I live out of.
You're simply listening.
Out of the city.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and I think the last one is phone number ending in 9535.
A phone number ending in 9535.
That's me.
That's you who just spoke, correct? Okay.
This is Cliff, Lisa.
That's our member.
Oh.
I thought I recognized.
Hey, Cliff.
Are you speaking for or against?
I finally get the recognition I so deserve.
Nice to hear you, Cliff. Okay. Is that it?
I think that's it. Should we unmute everyone?
Yeah, let's go ahead and unmute anyone and everyone. And if you didn't get a chance to say your piece, speak up now.
This is Anita Scodgill.
Okay, and did you speak already?
Yes, ma'am. But I was curious, he mentioned the sewer situation, adding to the sewer situation. How many additional people can we overload the sewer system with? I mean, how many people would it take to be too many people? Because I had talked to a builder before, and he said that he was concerned with all the apartments going up, that it's going to overload the system because it was already inadequate. Is that true or not?
Do you?
We shared this concept plan with our public works director today, and that was not an immediate concern.
Hi.
It was brought up from his review, but we will make sure moving forward that issue is explored, and we would make modifications to the plan as necessary to allow for proper sewage.
Okay. Were you able to hear that?
No, I didn't hear it at all.
Sorry about that, ma'am. We met earlier today with the Public Works Director, and he is aware of this project, and he is also aware of the sewer and water lines that would service this project. So we are under review, and we will make certain that if this project was approved, that we would have adequate facilities to service the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else out there who wishes to speak? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, was it something?
It would have been, just for future, it would have been nice if there would have been some way we could have seen his slides.
Yes. Will they be on YouTube? Can you see them on?
Not the slides.
Not the slides? Can we make those available in some way?
Yeah, city can upload them to their. They're already on. They're online right now on the.
The slides are online
Well,
what?
they're basically the slides he had were on the agenda.
No, these slides that we saw weren't in the agenda.
The separate PowerPoint wasn't, but I believe the agenda ones.
We're happy to email out the slides to everybody who sent letters. We'd be more than happy to make those available.
Okay, so how do participants need to do this? We do have email addresses for
I
some.
submit, Chairman, that we just make it available and attach it to the agenda item.
To the agenda items, is that possible?
That's a much.
Make that
more
PowerPoint
efficient way.
available on this?
We're happy to do whatever it
Because it
is.
should be submitted into the.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure everyone would love to have access to that.
I want to flip that one around that kind of got skewed the wrong way, so it's
Sure,
makes
yeah.
sense, but I can have that to you guys tomorrow morning.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Okay, thank you. Mr. Emmons, I know, was waving at me, and there were a few things that he wanted.
I'd just like to make some clarification.
Certainly,
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for calling in. I know this is hard times to try to conduct business this way. I just want to address some of the issues that were mentioned most. We did consider the impact of the pandemic when we came up with our unit count and mix. We're not opening for this coming fall. It would be a year from now. So we do understand that there is a likelihood of some or all classes being done remotely, but we also feel that as the economy recovers, that there will be a surge of students going back to school as the economy turns. So our market study has taken that into consideration. As for the traffic, we do make our developments pedestrian and bike friendly. When we developed in Big Rapids, we worked with the city to add sidewalks from our parcel or from our property to campus, and we'd be happy to work with the city to make safe pedestrian bike traffic lanes available and sidewalks available from our property to campus. We are working with our engineer and also with Nick Williams on the water issue. We do know there's a water issue, and we appreciate that. Right now, it flows over the surface of our property or our potential property onto the properties to the south. We would be capturing that water as it came onto our property and then piping it to the structure, and I can't remember where Nick said it was at, but there's a couple different ways. So actually, I think this would alleviate the problem and not add to it. We have to detain any of our water, and that's why the ponds are sized accordingly. So hopefully, the engineers can work together with the city and our engineers, and I do believe we'll improve the problem instead of cause for future problems. The access off of Phillips, the one to the north, we did not plan on going out. We have told Steve and his staff that and talked to the fire marshal, the one going south out on Phillips is not necessary for us. The only thing the fire department asked, and we're fine even without it going out at all, but they asked that it would be nice to at least have it for emergency access. So we're more than happy to put one of the emergency gates that when the fire department needs access to that, they can get through it, but it would not be for regular traffic to go in and out of that neighborhood. This is, I think, my third time in town now, at least my third time in town now, and I've spent time driving through the neighborhoods, and I understand what they're talking about, the traffic patterns on the south side, the roads kind of curve. So I would agree with them that using that as a point of exit isn't beneficial for that neighborhood, and we're happy to make it so it's not.
Just for clarification, I believe you're referring to the west exit from
Is
the
it
property.
west? I thought
Yes,
it was
sir.
south.
We have the north
This is a little bit of an
orientation,
angle, doesn't it?
so- Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it's when
Plan north, so I guess it would be west. The privacy issue, I do understand that, but our buildings, the setbacks of our buildings are greater than what's required in most R1 zoning districts. And so the distance between the start of one of our buildings is greater than what most neighborhoods would have, either side to side or front to back. We've never had a pest issue in the past on any of our properties. We're very diligent about dumping the dumpsters on a regular basis, so I don't think that that would be an issue, but we'd be happy to work through that and make sure that it did not happen. There was 3 requests from the, is it the Amber?
Homes, yeah. Amber Homes.
Amber Homes. The drainage ditch walkway, it would not be an issue. I did ask the question of, that's not on any of our easements, so I don't know how that, but we have just started discussing that with the city, but I don't think that's a issue that we can't work around. And I agree with them, they would not want it to make it a sidewalk. And as we work through the screening and the berming and the fencing, we could make means to make sure that that didn't become a sidewalk to go through our district into the neighborhood. We'd be happy to pay for a dead end sign for the city if they'd like, that's no problem, so we would contribute that. And the request of the trees along the property line, any existing trees that are healthy, that are in the green space, we would work to preserve. Not just because the neighbors are asking, but it just makes a better community for us. And we do that in all our communities. So whatever trees we can save, and if we start, I know one lady mentioned, well, we're already out there. To be able to put any type of plan like we put together today, we had to have an accurate survey. So that is what the staking's for, is to give us an idea exactly where the property lines are, so we knew how far we could set back. So it wasn't of us getting out there and trying to start the project early, it was just to do our due diligence. And then the holes that were being dug is for a geotech, and that gives us insight to what the stormwater system needs to be and what type of perk the ground does, so we can properly design it. So I hope no one thinks that we're out there trying to speed along the process, it's just our due diligence. Parking lot lighting, the great thing now about LED lighting is you can direct it down. The city does have ordinance on how many foot candles that you can expel off of your property. We'll work definitely to not to have light pollution on our neighboring properties. You know, some areas they want extra lighting. I don't think that there's a crime where we have to be worried about having the extreme amount of lighting on this property, but we'll work within the city ordinances and with the neighbors to make sure that we do not impact them negatively. The reason we put the AC units on the roof is so you can't see them, and I'm sorry, I omitted the fact that there'd be a parapet wall along the top, and so our architect has this way of figuring out if you stand back so far and the parapet wall is so high, you can't see the units on the roof with whatever size they are. So there would be a wall, it'd probably be about 3 foot tall, and I think if you stood in the middle of Charlotte Street and looked at the property, you would not be able to see. There would be no point where I think you'd see an AC unit on any of the roofs. The sewer line is a concern on every project, to making sure that the proper infrastructure is in place. We've been working with Nick Williams, and we'll continue to work with Nick Williams to make sure that not only water, sewer are properly addressed for our development, and it doesn't negatively impact the neighborhood and community as a whole. Traffic was brought up, and any development that's done there is going to impact traffic. And I'm not going to stand here and say, oh, we're not going to have an impact, there's not going to be an increased amount of cars. We're proposing 148 units. If the R3 and the R1 zoning were done as it is now, you'd be pretty close to 100 units. And you know, most families now have more than 2 cars. So yes, we would be increasing traffic to a certain point, but I don't think we're increasing it to the dramatic point if the property was just developed as it is zoned properly, as it is zoned presently now. So, can I ask you any other questions?
Commissioners?
I have a question.
Sure.
On your egress and ingress, you're only going to have one entrance into your property. Is that correct?
Right now,
So
yes.
you're going to unload 100, and so let's just divide it in half. You got 296 parking spaces. So let's cut that in half by 100. So every morning, Tarleton, you'd have Tarleton students. You're going to unload 148 cars at 8, 9 o'clock onto Tarleton. Is that correct?
I don't know if it would be that exact number. I understand the math.
It's going to be pretty close.
I understand the math you're using.
Yep.
And again, we're gonna emphasize being a green community and making it pedestrian friendly and bike friendly.
Right.
I'm happy if there's a way to put out 2 lanes. I don't think if we put 2 out on Tarlington or 1, it's gonna make a great difference. We looked at the 2 entrances at Phillips, but we didn't wanna put cars into the neighborhoods. I don't think that was, so to answer your question, yes, there's gonna be additional traffic out there. How much? I can't really say. I understand your math. I'm not disagreeing with it. I don't have a great answer to that, but I'm happy to work with the city to come up with another solution.
Since most of these cars leaving the parking lot will be going to Carlton, they're going to be hitting Harvard, and that street doesn't have a traffic light. It's all kinds of chaos already trying to get out.
Sure. Again, happy to work with the city. You know, I sat on a plan commission in my hometown and on the city council, so I've asked the same questions of developers you guys have asked, and you know, I'd always go to the developer, and this was before I was in the development business. I was in my 20s, but you know, I'd ask these questions, and we're happy to contribute and help in whatever we can. We don't have an endless pot of money of the sense that we can do every improvement that, you know, maybe needs to be done in this area to you know, to handle everything that's there, but we're happy to work with you guys in whatever way we can. And I think Steve will tell you that we've said that from day one in talking with him as, hey, we want to be you know, a proactive member of the community. We want to be good neighbors. We don't want to come in here and cause extra problems. So whatever we can do to work with you guys, we're happy to do it as a company to a city.
On a planned development as this is, what type of fence are you planning to put up on the surrounding boundaries?
So we talked about that today. It would be a 6-foot privacy fence. I would not use like a board-on-board stockade type fence. It would be more of a decorative. But we'd like to do with that a combination of berming and heavy landscaping. So, you know, as I walked the property today and in the past, a lot of the properties already have fences there now. Instead of going back-to-back fences, I'd rather kind of mix it up and say there's 3 property owners that don't have fence at all, and they say, hey, I'd really like to have a privacy fence in my backyard. Okay, great, we can put one there. But the other areas that already have privacy fences up, maybe we do more heavy landscaping and berming in those areas, so you don't have this long 1,000-foot length of fence. It's broken up and more aesthetically pleasing, not only to the development on our side, but also to the neighbors on the other side.
And the berming that you're talking about, how tall would it be?
I don't know that yet. A lot of that is going to depend on how much dirt we create, spoils. I mean, we're going to create a great amount from the retainage area. I don't know that yet, but usually it's someplace 4 to 6 feet. And I'm not saying it's a whole property line, but it would be strategically placed with the fencing and the landscaping.
Okay, no further questions?
Well, a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Todd.
When you say heavy landscaping, define heavy landscaping. I mean, you're not talking about a crepe myrtle.
Pardon?
You're not talking about a crepe myrtle.
I don't know what a crepe myrtle is.
Hey, so there you go. See, you're not from Texas. No, I'm just kidding. So a crepe myrtle is like just a little bush. I mean, it's not. It's a twiggy tree. You're talking more, I would assume, but brushes, shrubs.
Yes.
I hate to say red tip petunias because they'll die off, but things of those nature.
Would you like to design our landscaping? Because you
No,
know more than I do.
No, I'm just saying, but that would be dense where people can't see it.
Heavy, dense, thick, maybe is a good word. You know, I'm not going to come and do, you know, rows of, you know, evervites. I just don't think it's attractive. You know, we're going to engage we already have a landscape architect who will come in and it will be tastefully done. I mean, it's not going to be something where we just line a bunch of evergreen trees. And, you know, into the person's fact of not knowing Texas, I'll be honest with you, I haven't developed.
Well, the species aren't important, but the design of it is.
Right.
And then that's what we'll call them sun nerves. Like you said, putting an evergreen tree is just a trunk.
Yeah.
That doesn't, it sounds good, but in theory, it covers nothing and it shows nothing. And in the end, it shows everything, but covers nothing. So sound still goes through it. I'm just wondering on those aspects because the real consideration, for the most part, are really these residents this R3 over here is already there, right? So I mean,
Right.
So my next question is, and comment
Can I go
really.
back real quick?
Sure.
So one of the reasons why, to your question on landscaping, that I thought a planned development was more advantageous for the city and for the neighbors is the fact that whatever we call out for, so our landscaping plan will be part of the planned development, and it's gonna be very specific. So what we're gonna present to you in the next meeting with you and the city council, hopefully, is a plan that says, it's this tree, and there's this many of them, and this is where they're placed, and there's this type of fence, and the fencing's in this area, and we're berming, and the berms run from here to here, and they're that tall. And at that point, you know what you're getting, and I very much respect what the one lady said, because when I sat in your position, we had people came through and they'd ask for an R3 zoning, they'd ask for a commercial zoning, and you'd zone it because of what they presented, then they come back and they build something totally different. So that's why I'm up north, we call them planned unit developments, you guys call them planned developments. I'm a fan of them because what I present to you is what you're gonna get. And if we vary from that, I either have to come back and ask for it, or we don't do it. And to me, I think that's very important when it's controversial, as this zoning is what we present to you is what you're gonna get.
Absolutely, and I know we're not voting tonight, but so my last thing is, and just to, the densities is the biggest issue, right? And that's to overcome. I want to, like you pointed out, I want everybody who's on the call still point out that 35 feet is as high as it can go. 35 feet can be built in a R1 as well. That's a 2-story house.
Right.
They still have the same privacy issues looking over on a 2-story apartment or a 2-story. It's really a density problem. So I want to make sure everybody understands out there that that's the height and 2-story, that can happen to you tomorrow with Amber Homes. So whoever
I think
goes in
there's probably
there,
some in Amber Homes that are higher than.
Yeah, I'm just
than 35 feet.
using that as an example. But I do the density I understand, and that's a struggle for you to make it work profitably and et cetera. So, and I know that we're just doing this for advisory, right? So, those shrubs are the reason I bring it up. The headlight issue around these houses would be solved by dense shrubs and a berm. If you put a berm and then you put dense shrubs, those lights come in there, it's not getting through.
No.
The noise, that's a different issue. Maybe that might have to be a thing, but on that issue. So things are workable. I appreciate you trying to work with the citizens to see it. Everything's workable and there's a lot of fear. But fear is usually false expectations appearing real, which means there's an expectation out there that's not really real. It is density problem real, yes, that's another overcoming problem, but some of these other things can be worked out. So I do have a density problem, that's my biggest concern is here. But I like the way you designed it. You put all the heavy density up front. But I don't know if Tarleton can handle that either, the street load. That's a lot of load. But again, it's a preliminary. That's the biggest concerns that I see is that dump out.
That dump out is a major concern of mine, Todd, and I'll tell you why, is we don't have another, you're gonna have to go east and west before you can dump off of Tarleton. Right there you have all of those, commercial, the industrial buildings right there. So it just dead ends right there. So that is a major, we're going to have to look at the overload of where the traffic's going to be unloaded at.
Well, the city will, yes. But
The city is. That's
Especially on Dell Street in the morning.
And my other concern
I don't
is.
disagree with you.
And my other concern is I think we need a buffer, a fence type of buffer to separate those houses on both sides. I think you need to do something like that.
Oh, we're happy to, and that's in our plan. Like I said, I just don't know if it's advantageous to run a long fence all the way down, or is it to take it on kind of a, I don't want to say case by case basis, but area by area basis on, do you do a fence back to back, or do you do something where it's kind of mixed? And we're open to working with the neighbors and the city on recommendations of what they'd like. Sure.
yeah, I mean, I'm usually the fence guy, and I'm usually the guy who gets turned down by wanting fences. But on this approach, I understand where you're coming from, because by putting the fence in, that's not necessarily a better solution than dense vegetation. So it might be a case-by-case basis if this gets approved over there, because I would recommend an 8-foot minimum fence, but that's just, you're the developer and you're the deal and you come through the proposals, but, because I see your approach and I think it might work in that.
So I understand what you're saying about the 8 foot, and it might be something where we say, hey, look, we're gonna run a 2-foot berm, and we're putting a 6-foot fence in this area to get that same effect.
Right.
Then, I don't want it to make it look so hard with an 8-foot wood fence along there. I'd like to make it soft and appealing on both sides.
And another thing with the density, I know that some other projects that come through here saying, well, we've got these many parking places and stuff. The parking places that you're looking at, how big would they be? Would they?
The city standard's 9.5 by 18, and every single parking space, other than the handicap, meet that. We did take a look at doing 10-foot parking spaces. Up by us, it's 8.5 and 9. I actually questioned our engineer when he said that, and then I read through the ordinance, and there's one spot in the ordinance, but if it's an angled parking space, it becomes 10. We are to city standards, and I think we have adequate amount of parking, so that I don't want to have an issue where we're getting calls a year after the development or months after development that, well, we've got residents that park in the neighborhood and walk. We don't want that issue.
Because the main reason that I'm asking this is because we've got a poster child out there that the parking places were reduced in size, and with all this being kind of a cowboy capital and Tarleton being kind of an ag school and everything else, there's a lot of pickups and dualies and stuff like that, and I just wanted to make sure that your count is not a smaller parking lot than what the city is requiring.
Yeah, no, it's not. And to the one caller, I own an F-350. I have right now, I think I have 9 horses and a horse trailer. So I'm in heaven down here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is like, perfect for me.
And you know what we're relating to in that
Exactly.
aspect too. So.
Well, anyway, I appreciate what you've done. I understand the citizens on the phone still. There's 25 citizens that bought houses next to R1s, assuming it would be on one. And the reason you live in a city is zoning. If you don't worry about zoning, well, who's going to live next to you? You live out in the county. So the city's job is to protect that real estate investment of what a citizen's made. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. So I'm a little concerned on that, but other than that, I mean, if it's a fair plan and we can make it work, then I'm definitely there's no reason to have conversations without spending so much. But those 25 that were on the phone and who sent in letters, the 10 of them with letters, that they carry a lot of weight because it's their house right next to it. And whether it's a decrease of value or not, it is a problem for them, and it's a problem that we have to take into consideration. It's a problem with them, even if it's not a decrease. It's definitely could be a no vote to a buyer. And that's why they're there to protect. So I'm not saying you're trying to do that, but we got to take that very cautious approach. And the council has a bigger decision than we do. But
Thank you, Todd. And is that it, Commissioners? I never actually closed the public hearing, so I'll go ahead and do that now.
Okay. I'm happy to answer. The only thing
Thank
I'd
you.
like to add between now and your next meeting, is it Steve, is it best for you to set up a neighborhood meeting? Or how do we do that?
City staff generally won't get involved in
Okay.
that type of arrangement with a private developer, but you could continue to work with Ashley and Jeff.
Okay, perfect. We just want to hear all the concerns and have some nice dialogue back and forth to help solve as many problems before we come back up here. And then this is everything we heard last time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And for those of you who are still on the line or who are watching this afterwards or watching it now, these items will go before the City Council on June 2nd. So that is the first Tuesday of the month. So June 2nd,
That's not correct.
Actually, ladies.
Is that not?
That is actually under review right now. The only reason it would go before the council, the concept plan would be if they.
So that this preview only comes to us and does not go to City Council?
The next step, as we have interpreted the ordinance, is that Mr. Emmons would bring back his
Final
development plan. And then you would again have the opportunity to provide input on the
Gotcha.
development plan.
And then it goes to City Council. Okay, all right, so.
I was under the same understanding.
Right?
I was under the same
just
understanding
As
this
me?
morning as you.
Yeah, okay.
And then I was corrected.
Okay, so I anyway, whatever. So, as it stands now, we're hearing this, getting the input tonight. He'll go back, work on his plan, meet with citizens, work on his plan, and then come to us with a final proposal. We'll vote upon it then, and then
We
it'll
would
go
have
on to
another
City
public
Council.
hearing, would we not?
Yes, we'll have another public hearing. Yeah.
We'd have to.
Yes, yes. And I just want to encourage everybody who's spoken, take the opportunity to speak to Mr. Emmons and his group, and then come back and speak to us again when we hear this next. And then go in front of City Council when City Council hears it, because we only make a recommendation. The Planning and Zoning Group only makes a recommendation. It is the City Council that makes the final decision. So you need to voice concerns to the City Council. Okay, since we are not voting on this, correct, we can just move on to the next agenda item, and all of these are interrelated, so I think we can kind of slash through this real quick, but just for the sake of procedure, I'll, the second item on the agenda is case number PD 2020-004. Applicant Steve Emmons is requesting a rezone of property located at 0 Tarleton, parcel R73194, lot 1, block 3 of the Cayley subdivision of the city of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from single-family residential R1 to planned development PD. Steve, I assume you have nothing new to add?
No additional comments.
Okay. For form's sake, I'm opening a public hearing. Anybody wish to speak? Closing the public hearing.
No, you speak against.
Well, I said anybody wish to speak. So anybody wish to speak for or against in this public hearing?
Well, I mean,
Closed. Public hearing is closed.
Not in favor of.
And since, I'll just go ahead and read for the record, the final item on the agenda is case number PD 2020-005. Property owner AIG Enterprise LLC has no, I'm reading the wrong thing. Sorry. 37, thank you. Applicants, okay, PD 2020-005, applicant Steve Emmons is requesting a rezone of property located at 0 Tarleton, parcel R30333, block 139, lot 8E of the city addition to the city of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from multiple family R3 to planned development PD. Steve, I assume you have nothing new to add here?
Additional comments, thank you.
Okay, and we will open a public hearing. Anybody wish to speak for or against? Closing the public hearing. Okay, so we're not voting on anything tonight. This has been a fact-finding, information-gathering mission, and that is all we have on the agenda.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
May I have just a moment?
Yes, please.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Emmons for coming down and thank the commission for serving this city and for your sacrifice that you make to be here and the time that you commit to the city. And also to all the citizens that called in, we certainly appreciate their input. I'm estimating approximately 75 letters went out, so I think it was a tremendous turnout for what we had in testimony tonight. And with that, I have a bittersweet announcement I'd like to share. And Ms. Shira King, this will be her last meeting with us. She has announced her resignation with the city. She's moving on to spend more time with her family, so we're excited for her in that regard, but certainly going to miss her. I think she did a great job tonight preparing all the packets and having everything available for the meeting, so just wanted to thank her for her service to the city of Stephenville and wish her well in her endeavors. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Shira. We're going to miss you.
Thanks, Shira.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meta. Second? Brian seconds. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.